for this morning, today's Tourism on Target will focus on how the industry is evolving to meet the new needs of the travelers and the businesses and communities that make up the hospitality industry. So our businesses and communities so our special guest this morning, Mr. Michael Jacobson from IHLA, will bring his perspective on how hotels throughout the state are adapting to the changes, how they have weathered the stay-at-home order, and how hotels will face the new challenges post-COVID-19. While Mr. Patrick Higgins will speak to the perspective of events and convention planners and what the future of large-scale in-person events will look like moving forward. And I will say that when we were creating this new Tourism on Target Town Hall, our directors here, I think Josh Albrecht came with saying, why don't we try and get Michael Jacobson and Patrick Higgins of Connect and IHLA. I said, you can get those guys. Absolutely. They're very busy individuals and high profile. So I'd say it's my honor to introduce these gentlemen. And what I will do is I'll introduce Mr. Michael Jacobson first and leave him time for opening remarks. And then we'll introduce Mr. Higgins as well. But for those that don't know Mr. Michael Jacobson, he was named President and CEO of the Illinois Hotel and Lodging Association in October of 2018. In his role, he's proud to represent the 1,500 and other hospitality stakeholders throughout the state. Michael's priorities for the organization include bolstering the industry's advocacy capacity in Springfield and municipalities throughout the state, while enhancing IHLA's educational programs to serve as a resource for its members. So prior to joining, Michael spent 8 years at the U.S. Travel Association, where he led the organization's grassroots advocacy and political engagement initiatives. He grew U.S. Travel's Political Action Committee to become one of the nation's largest travel industry PACs, and spearheaded campaigns like the Vote Travel, nationwide bus tour, and successful efforts to reauthorize Brand USA in 2014. That's a big, big thing, and to have him leading the IHLA is really a strong asset for Illinois. And so he has been very busy and very active and very successful in the communication advocacy that our hotels and lodging is needed throughout these times. They drive the engine. They are the engine for hospitality. So with that, I want to applaud Mr. Michael Jacobson on his work thus far and yield the floor to him.
Thanks, JD, and thanks for having me here today. It's obviously unique times, and it's definitely one of the most unique National Travel and Tourism Week that I've been part of. I've been celebrating this for 10 years now. As JD mentioned, I was with the U.S. Travel Association before coming to IHLA, and U.S. Travel is actually the organization that spearheads National Travel and Tourism Week every year. So obviously it's usually much more fun to celebrate in person with you all, but we're making it work just like everybody else is, and we're looking forward. Hopefully I'll be able to celebrate in person with you all next year. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to tell you something that you already know. The hotel industry has been devastated in the last several weeks. But like I said, we've been through challenging times before, whether it was 9/11 or the 2008 economic recession, or looking even further back. We've been through challenging times before, and we've gotten through them. Obviously, none of those compare even somewhat to what we're going through right now. You look at the economic impact as it relates to tourism with 9/11 and 2008 combined, and they don't relate to the amount of job losses that hotels have seen here in the last 6 weeks. So the theme of this year's National Travel and Tourism Week is the spirit of travel. And I think that speaks to our industry perfectly. We're resilient. We have our own spirit as an industry above and beyond what consumers have in terms of spirit of travel when they're making their future travel plans. So we're looking forward. We're very encouraged by the steps that our industry is taking in terms of reopening and recovery. We're in constant communication with the governor's team as well as local municipalities throughout the state of what that looks like in terms of hotels and tourism. But I think just more broadly, it feels like there's finally a dim light at the end of the tunnel. The last several weeks, we're all focused on layoffs and furloughs and figuring out this new norm. But now we're talking about recovery and what that looks like. Will it be a V curve? Probably not. It will probably be a more gradual recovery, but it's something that it's a recovery, and that's something that we're feeling encouraged about. I think that we're excited for the day when we can once again come together in places like Peoria and hire back our hardworking employees. We estimate that up to 131,000 Illinoisans have already been laid off or furloughed because of COVID-19. And these aren't just employees. These are family members. These are people that have been with our hotels for years, or in some cases even decades. These people have very tight-knit communities within our hotels and within the community like Peoria. And it's something that is, of course, heartbreaking for our hotel owners to make those very tough decisions. So we're working on doing everything we can to rehire back our employees as quickly as possible. And to do that, we need to make sure that travelers feel safe, because people are not, even when the stay-at-home order is lifted in Illinois, people are not going to begin traveling overnight. We need to really focus on consumer confidence and making sure that people feel safe. And I know we're going to get into this a little bit later in the program, but I think that is a key priority of us as IHLA and us as an industry, of making sure that people really do feel safe and comfortable, and that they are aware of all the necessary steps that our industry is taking around cleaning and safety, because they are considerable. And I think that will be crucial in terms of recovery for our industry. So I'll pause there, knowing that we're going to get into some of this a little later in the program, but just appreciate you all having me and appreciate all that many of you do into making Peoria a great place to visit.
Well, thank you for that. It's a great, cliffhanger as to more discussion coming forward. So I appreciate that. I will move to introduce our next speaker, our guest today. That's Mr. Patrick Higgins, Vice President of Connect Meet. And so Mr. Higgins spent over a decade in various CVB sales capacities in Reno, Tahoe, Palm Springs, California, and Salt Lake City, small markets like that, before joining the Connect executive team in 2012. So Connect's event portfolio has grown from 3 annual events to more than 32 over the last 8 years. So put that in perspective of how quickly Connect has grown. Connect events attract more than 5,000 planners and 7,000 hoteliers, CVBs, and service providers annually. In reaction to the recent COVID-19 pandemic, Higgins leads the Connect Back to Business DMO task force, preparing DMOs and planners from around the country to lay foundations within their respective communities for quick path to recovery and meetings and conventions bounce back. When I was able to take on this role in August of last year, the first travel I took was to Connect Marketplace down in Louisville. And that was my first look into what Connect has. And if you haven't been there, if you have, wow, that's quite the experience, just to be able to walk around. I was just there to soak it all in and witness it. So I know, being able to have the Vice President here with us is quite an honor and a privilege. So I want to thank you for your time, Patrick, and I will yield the floor to you.
Well, thank you. And good morning, everyone. Happy Travel and Tourism Week to all of you. As Michael mentioned, we're all celebrating a little differently today than we're accustomed to, but it's more important now than ever before. And as Michael said, we're all optimistic that the majority of the doom and gloom type conversations that we've all had to have, those difficult conversations, we're hoping that the majority of that is all behind us. We're also seeing signs of hope and a light at the end of the tunnel. And I've seen recessions and natural disasters and different things like that impact our community, just like we all have. I think this is one of the few times that we've seen almost all of those come together to create the perfect storm for our industry. And at Connect, I am leading a team that is investing a lot of time and resources into discovering what our new normal will be, and understanding how meetings, conventions, and sporting events will be changing in the short term and possibly longer. And we're being very data driven. We're using a lot of data and science that we're able to collect to help drive what we're doing. And I'm looking forward to sharing what we've been uncovering over the course of these past few weeks with all of you. And thanks again. Look forward to participating and learning along with you all today.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And just a reminder that this being a town hall setting of sorts, feel free to submit your questions via chat. We have to get to them. We have some lined up already, which we will get into. And we've elaborated on a little bit of what we want to get into, and we may, we'll go with the flow as we continue through the Q&A here. But one question that was submitted earlier on from our partners at WEEK, I'll lead in with the question with just a reflection of what we've been doing here at the CVB in Peoria is we're quick to remind ourselves that Peoria has one of the richest histories really across the country. Discovered in 1680 paints a large history towards where we are today. And, I tell people, we've seen adversity throughout the years, and one being the major, most somewhat recent one, where you're thinking about 340 years of history, is the Prohibition. We're the whiskey capital of the world at one point. So much revenue, federal revenue, going to support the country from whiskey sales. We played a driving force in the economy, and overnight, that economy was illegal. It was non-existent. And so we've kind of faced the same scenario here, in which we've seen, the economy shut down overnight for the safety and security of, people. But at the same time, we've seen a strong economic impact. Now, what do we take, and where does the eye go? Where do our eyes go towards the future? And so the question being from here is, how will people evolve despite the pandemic? What can the industry do to rebound quickly? So I guess that's the question that we have here today, and maybe we open up for discussion is, what can the industry do to rebound quickly, and how will Peoria evolve despite the pandemic?
I could start it. I'll start by saying, thank God it's not Prohibition right now, because I need my whiskey at the end of the day. But I will say, I think in terms of rebounding quickly, I think we just need to remind people something that they already know. And while it's a little, it's weird right now, people are second guessing their need to travel. But I think when you remind them the importance of meeting in person, people get it. And I remember a ad, I had to pull up the YouTube video of it the other day. United Airlines after 9/11, if you remember, the same conversation was happening around technology. And is this the end of travel as we know it? Because people realized that at the time they didn't have Zoom, but email was just starting to pick up, and conference calls. And there was a manager that had a team of consultants and was handing out boarding passes saying, get on the road again, go visit our clients, get on the road again. And I think whether it's personal and leisure travel or business travel, nothing replaces face-to-face meetings. And I think reminding people of that will really help us recover. But also, it's going to take thinking creatively. Some hotels throughout Illinois are currently offering what they're calling hotel bonds, where you purchase a gift certificate now, and it grows by up to 50% if you redeem it later in the year. And that helps not only get immediate cash flow in right now for hotels, but it also keeps us top of mind. It commits people to future travel and coming to our destination. So I think it's going to take some of these creative partnerships with local organizations. If you look at some of the partnerships that are created between hotels and attractions and even restaurants, we're all facing hard times right now. So as much as we can cooperate and try to create a Peoria-centric package that really helps highlight the entire destination rather than just individual businesses, I think will help our collective industry rebound overall much more quickly.
Good perspective there. Yeah, appreciate that. That's great. Patrick, do you have anything to add to that? Some of it is a local perspective, so I can jump in, but I'll give the floor to you.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. I think from the different conversations that we've had, we have you alluded to our back to business DMO task force, and we had our initial kickoff call last week, and the general consensus of this group that was comprised of presidents and vice presidents of different DMOs from throughout the country, the general consensus that regional events and even sports will lead out of this. We've heard from planners that about 7 or 8% of national associations are taking that national association meeting, and they're up into smaller regional meetings where planners necessarily need to jump on a plane right away, but it's something they can drive to build up that traveler confidence. So to put that in perspective, last year, regional and state association meetings ranked number 6 in terms of what were the most important market segments for a destination. The survey we sent last week, regional and state association meetings went to number 2, right behind corporate meetings. So it's a pretty strong indicator of just where the meetings and conventions market will be for the short term. But also, I think safety and wellness initiatives are going to be big, and travelers are going to be looking for guidelines and insight into exactly what that is.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, Peoria stands ready. We got a great meetings and convention right across the street here from where I'm broadcasting here. So I know our partners at the Civic Center and our hotels within walking distance and across the river are ready to host them. So yeah, if that's the trend, we look forward to the bounce back for sure. We mentioned a little bit you talked about safety there, Patrick, and even hotels. Maybe talk a little bit about that. In terms of attendee safety to bring events back, online for later this summer or fall. What kind of trends do you think seeing implemented, whether it's from a regulation standpoint or legislative or just common sense to bring safety to not just the experience at meetings and conventions, but also hotels? Maybe we could touch on that real quick as we look ahead to that. So any specifics you've heard from your perspective on those?
Sorry, JD, were you looking for Patrick or myself?
I guess we'll open it up. We'll start with the hotels. Okay. I guess maybe we'll start with how much, what do you see as being the new standards for hotel safety and what, to be compliant with whatever we may be seeing from a regulation standpoint, legislative, or just common sense? What kind of new standards will we see there? And is there going to be a cost effect to that too? And do we have to be looking ahead to that as well for hotel partners? We'll start with the hotels and maybe go to meetings after.
Sure. So on the hotel front, you've seen in the last real week and a half, a lot of the brands coming out with their announcements around their updated brand guidelines related to health and safety. Frankly, a lot of it was already in place. Hotels are known as one of the cleaner environments out there, but they're even doubling down on that commitment. I think they're partnering with other organizations like Mayo Clinic and the CDC and even a group called GBAC, the Global Biorisk Advisory Council. And so a lot of these groups are coming together to figure out what that does look like. And I think there's going to be a lot of leaning on technology. There's things like electrostatic sprayers that are commonly used in hospital cleanings are now going to be carried over into hotel lobbies and hotel guest rooms. Technologies like UV lighting units that can be rolled in and kill any known pathogens in a guest room. So, of course, there is a cost related to that, but it's a cost that I think is going to be baked into the normal operating costs of a hotel. But we're putting together what these regulations or what these recommendations look like for the hotel industry as we speak. I think you'll see some more announcements made later this week. But we know that consumer confidence is going to be the most important thing to regenerate when it comes to convincing people to travel. But one thing we want to be careful of is that we're in close consultation with a lot of state officials as what recovery and what reopening looks like. We want to make sure that there's not necessarily one size fits all standards that are applied by the government to our hotels, because you just have to look, even within Peoria, the Marriott is very different than some of our more select service properties and the types of offerings and the type of structure of that hotel. And obviously hotels in Peoria are very different than resort properties in Western Illinois or high rises in downtown Chicago. So we're putting together those set of recommended guidelines for our hotels to really take on themselves. And I think the most important thing is it's going to be ever evolving. The recommendations that we come out with this week are going to change next week and are going to change a month from now. So I think there's going to be more immediate steps, but it's going to be an evolving conversation as we learn more about the virus and future viruses and get more guidance from the government and health officials.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll do the plug for you. I mean, for all those updates as it evolves, you can turn to the IHLA for those updates and guidance, I'm sure. So keep leaning on that organization to navigate. And to segue to meetings and conventions, just again, the human behavior, the safety precautions that will take place. It's the next normal, the new normalcy that we'll see. Anything from crowd size evolving back into what is there a trend that we'll see, Patrick, as to what crowd sizes we'll see? I mean, it's going to vary state by state, locality by locality, but from your perspective, what do you see as getting crowds back together, and then the safety precautions that follow with that?
You know, it changes every day. It seems like with every governor's press conference, the dynamics are shifting. I was on a conversation with the DMO in California last week, and I'd said, well, meetings and conventions are phase 4 of your governor's reopening plan. What does that look like? And she had said, well, by by writing, it's groups of 250 or less, but verbally, it's groups of 25 or less. So there's some confusion on the hotel part in terms of which one of these do we go by. I can say that in a survey we pushed out to meeting planners last week, we had asked them what indicators they're looking for to demonstrate that it's time to start traveling again and doing business. And the number one answer is they're looking for demonstration from hotels and airlines that they're opening up for business and they're implementing safety protocol. So I think from a planner perspective, they're really waiting for things to open up in terms of what their hospitality product looks like and that they need to support their meetings to let them know that it's time to start traveling again. But it's every day it seems to change. I know for us, we're looking for homes for 40 to 42 of our meetings and events annually. And it's complicated for us because we don't know not only which state we can hold a meeting in, but if our attendees can even travel to that state. So it's constantly shifting, and it seems like it's changing every day.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I know from the local standpoint, for those who are locally listening, you know, we've had conversations with Louisville Slugger and Eastside Center, our sports complexes. You know, what does an outdoor venue look like compared to an indoor venue like we have at hotels and Civic Center? I know everybody's looking to run and start business back up again, and they want to be ahead of the curve as to what those requirements are. And that's why, you know, asking these questions, what do we see on the forefront? You know, and one of our partners said, if you can tell us we can open up next week under these guidelines, but we want to know those guidelines in advance so we can prepare for it, you know, so we can open up next week. We don't want to be delayed by an opening, being caught behind the ball as to what's now going to be required. So locally, I was on the phone with our director or CEO of the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council. And I think it's going to be a bit of, because it's so fluid from state to state and local municipality to municipality, it's making sure that our local contingencies have a somewhat of a task force or just a group think tank to stay on top of it. I just know because of the due diligence we've seen from our EDCs, our chambers, Audrey with the big table and our chamber CEO council, we just need to make sure we understand what Illinois has to do and Central Illinois has to do to properly prepare our venues to open on time and well prepared. So I know Louisville Slugger had an extensive conversation with them and just, you know, can you do wristbands anymore? That's physical contact. What do the lines have to look like? You know, we have section seating. You know, can we host a tournament, but can teams come from Chicago? You know, so things of that sort, depending on when the rollout is. So I guess for our local listeners here, we're going to look to make sure we're organized, and particularly with a lot of the rescheduling of events, our 501c3s hosting fundraising events and just good times that we always look forward to. What do those events look like? When are they going to be held? The CVB stands ready to help organize those calendars, that calendar to assure that not only do you know when they're going to be, but to the new precautions to take place in these event planning. So, you know, it's when we take it to a local level, we rely on our experts at, you know, Connect and IHLA to understand what we really need to know from the grand scale, and then learn from examples from other markets like ourselves, and then try and implement the best policies that we can in Peoria area. So that's what we're looking to do. And, you know, it's an open chat here. Feel free to ask any more questions you have as we continue on. I do have one more question that was submitted here. It came from WMBD, and it's a great question as to how are developments such as Keller Station, others across the city and county being affected by the pandemic. And I know we're lucky to have one of the developers for Keller Station on this call. I thought the question would come from her, but it came from WMBD. I'm not going to ask her to elaborate, but I know she'll be able to go in much more detail. You know, that's a development situation. We have a development project we have here that was thriving, bringing new businesses, and now been, you know, closing to a halt. And what the exact, to answer the question is, what are they facing? Much like everybody else, just a screaming halt to what they have planned and what the opportunity look like to make, you know, bring businesses in, and then the businesses there to thrive at the capacity they're hoping to, is just is fluid as we continue to bring that word up. But I would only say that the developments such as like Keller Station that we have here in Peoria and others around the area, I've seen a lot of innovation, a lot of innovative ideas come out, not just from sales perspective, but a marketing perspective to keep people engaged and keep spirits up, and then push business and support for these local businesses. And so I think that's what I'm seeing as a reaction to what we see. For the question from WMBD, I don't know exactly what they're facing, but I know they might be able to elaborate a little bit more from their perspective. I won't speak for them is what I'm saying, but from what I'm a regular, customer at CXT that's out there at Keller Station, and I know there's a couple other businesses that are opening up. They're just trying innovative ways to keep business moving in the best way possible. So, I can help connect you with individuals if you want further in-depth answers to that question from a local perspective. But for our experts here, I'm not sure if we'll dive into it, but it's a matter of new developments. Great stories that can come to communities that are bringing in small businesses, and it looks like we might be able to have Katie Kim. I can add my 2 cents at a high level. So we're going to call an audible here. And Katie, are you able to elaborate a little bit to the discussion here? We'll take a little left turn here. Maybe not. Bear with me. There.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit, a little fuzzy. So.
Hold on, I'll open my computer. Hold on, great. See if that helps. Is that better?
That's better. Yeah. Just
okay.
So the specific was to Keller Station, as you heard. You want to elaborate just a little bit?
Yeah. So we got hit at a definite interesting time. So CXT's open, as you mentioned, and thank you for continuing to support them. We appreciate that. And what we've done is really, and like, for example, we have Hello Headband, we have Hue Salon, Bones Burger, and Frozen Custard, and Inspired Maternity that are all current tenants at Keller Station. And Hello Headband has been an online store prior to here, and she's crushing it. And actually, it's kind of helping a little bit because she can't keep up to keep her store stocked. So she's actually good with not opening yet, but she's also hiring. So that's a great positive thing. And then Hue Salon, they're just waiting, as well as Bones Burgers, to do that. CXT's been very creative. They've started doing the waffles. And I think one of the things that we've really strived to do is create a community with our businesses. So we've taken on as the Kim Group to send out emails daily or every other day to our companies as to different things they can do for their brand, creative ideas, different incentive programs and stimulus programs, and really challenge them to think outside the box. When this hit, we immediately got on the phone with CXT and say, can you guys do online ordering? Because that was not something they did prior. And within a matter of, I would say 12 hours, we figured it out, got them launched. And so they were good with that point. We also reached out to some of our municipalities to see about using BDD funds and stuff like that. And then we really started to look at our community health, which I think is something that you touched on, and it's really been on my brain, my heart, as to, I feel like our community is being mentally and I would say politically divided and torn apart, which really scares me. And I think that everybody on this call is vested in our community and our mental health within our community. And so at Keller Station, well, those that know me, if you tell me no, then I'm going to do it bigger and better. And if you put me in a box, we're going to figure out how to rock it out in that box. So at Keller Station, we're putting our first curbside market on this Saturday. And really that came as a lot of our friends said, oh, Sunday's Mother's Day, and the only stores open are Lowe's, Menards, and Walmart. And so helping some of those last minute gift givers put some packages, and it's collaborating between all local businesses. And then a couple of events that we're working on as well. One that I'm gonna say is gonna be pretty public here in the next week or two, is looking to do a drive-in movie theater at Keller Station. So again, bringing them in, bringing our community, we're calling it physically distancing, socially integrating. So basically making sure our community can interact, but yet stay at good social distances. And I think those are the ideas that we have to get creative with the restrictions. And as leaders within the community, we need to be supporting that, promoting that. And I love what you said about the whiskey capital, because by knowing our history, we define where we go as our future. And that is, to me, one thing that I think Peoria is great at. When you say like it can't be done, it's we dig in and get it done. So
thank you, Katie. Yeah, appreciate it. Took a little right turn there, but thank you for your perspective. Keeping to a question on that innovation, I think we can, unexpected change can lead to improvements or innovative thoughts. And for our special guests here, for Patrick and Michael, from your perspective, what can be improved upon being thrown into this situation? And I'll at least say this, I push my team to say, I think those who are entrepreneurs, our small businesses, those in DMOs, those who are being most innovative at these times will see, be able to thrive throughout this. So as it pertains to innovative shifts in our industries in both hotels, hospitality, and meetings, have you seen anybody out there that's shown some great examples of how they've been innovative throughout these times? And we would maybe touch on some of that, but I'll open the floor back up. We'll start with Michael first. Is from a hotel standpoint, new innovative practices you've seen during this time despite the challenges, or at least things we can look forward to, and then we'll segue to meetings and conventions as well.
Yeah, I think there's an understanding that there's going to be such a shift. Long distance travel is going to take the longest to rebound. It's going to be much more drive market, as Patrick mentioned earlier, or even staycations of locals. So I've seen a lot of creativeness around what sort of promotions hotels are offering. There's a lot around Mother's Day. Is it a spa package where you can encourage your mom to take a day off and go soak in the tub with a bottle of champagne and chocolates and flowers, something like that? Typically, you wouldn't necessarily give your mom a hotel gift certificate for a hotel in your own city, but if you think creatively, it makes sense. Give her a day off. Things like that. But I think more importantly, more fundamentally and broadly, there's going to be there's so many more improvements related to technology right now. So I know myself, I typically stay in Hilton hotels when I travel. I know a lot of my members complain that I admit that, but that's just my preferred brand. And I know that they've used digital check-in for years, and they've really started accelerating the rollout of that. They kind of experimented with it, rolled it out to certain demographics of customers, but now they're really starting to focus on that. And me as a traveler, especially if I get in late night and jump off of a flight, or I'm driving and decide to pull off, I don't necessarily want to spend the 5 minutes at a check-in desk. I want to know what my room is, go there, use my phone as my key, and walk into my room. So I think there's going to be a lot more efficient travel, a lot better travel experience for the traveler as it pertains to technology. And I think if there's a silver lining of all this, it's forcing these hotel brands to really aggressively implement these far greater than they were previously.
It's interesting in the sense that, we do that at the airport already, mobile check-in, to reduce the lines and congestion, but also at this point now we see it as non-touch, touchless interaction. I think we always value that face-to-face interaction. I always enjoy the first face you see at a hotel is always a friendly, warm welcome, and I think that kicks off your experience, right? And that will never go away. It's always going to be needed because people value that one-on-one. But particularly when we were talking about groups of people now heading to hotels, those innovative. We do it at the airports now. I could see that definitely being the case for hotels moving forward. So,
especially if it's a DoubleTree and they give you a cookie at check-in, nothing beats that DoubleTree cookie.
That's right. Patrick, I yield the floor to you too on that topic of innovation in these times.
No, I agree with Michael entirely. I think technology is going to be, I think we're going to see some huge steps forward in terms of just technology and travel, and also efficiency in terms of, I think standing in lines, it's something that I have ever enjoyed, but for the foreseeable future, standing in a line could actually be perceived as a detriment to your health because you're standing around other people. So I think that it's in the technology, it's going to be used not just to help keep us healthy, but also to keep things quicker. I think from one unexpected change, and again, this is based off some conversations that I've had with peers in different cities, is overwhelmingly in terms of just destination marketing. There was a call I was on last week where somebody had said that destination marketing efforts have gotten lazy last 3 to 5 years because they could afford to be, because the market is doing so well that the travelers were gravitating towards destinations. They're doing a lot of traveling. So they made this point to say that we're going to see some of the best destination marketing, some of the most innovative, creative destination marketing that we've seen in a long time as a result of this, because it's to be. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like. But it's I do think that it's things that, in terms of just an unexpected improvement, that's what we in this same planner survey I keep referencing. If you would have told me that the #1 outreach to planners that they enjoy right now are recipes and playlists from hotels and CVBs that they're sharing with them, I would have thought you were crazy 2 months ago. But they love it. That's the #1 thing they like from an outreach standpoint, are those personal touch points that have nothing to do with business at all. It just shares a little insight into the people that they will be doing business with as things improve. So that's I like that the personal side has been introduced to this as well.
Thank you for that, and I appreciate your plug. You didn't know it, but for the new innovative thoughts from DMOs, new initiatives, new marketing initiatives, and we've had something brewing for quite a while here at the Enjoy Peoria, and we're looking forward to announcing that. And despite it being a significant change, if we didn't have COVID, now we're looking for this new marketing initiative to really showcase a new beginning here, per se, the next normalcy, really a way to really capture that brand identity here in Central Illinois and build off the residents that are our best brand advocates. So, you know, despite the times, we do see the silver lining, and our efforts that have been building for months now will be shown maybe in a different light, but still just as exciting. So we look forward to pushing that and continuing to challenge ourselves and making sure that we're innovative and creative in our way we market our hometowns. So with that,
hey, JD.
Yeah.
JD, can I add something that I think is an important point to make around destination marketing, and something that at IHLA, we're seeing kind of the perfect storm brewing here in Illinois, and the fact that most of our tourism bureaus across the state are 501c6 organizations who are currently not eligible to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program under the federal stimulus. So that kind of has had their hands tied in the immediate short term in terms of really stabilizing their funding. But then looking more long term related to funding, how the fact that our convention and visitor bureaus, Enjoy Peoria included, receives a large chunk of their funding from the state's hotel tax. And obviously right now and for the foreseeable future, that hotel tax is going to be drastically lower. Right now it's pretty much non-existent, but it'll be drastically lower for several weeks, if not months to come. And at a time when we're going to need our destination marketing organizations like Enjoy Peoria so much more than even we needed them before, and we're going to need them to be working double time to really think creatively and get us back in business, their hands are going to be tied because of the lack in funding that they're getting from the state because of the hotel tax being so decreased. So that's something we're working on in the state legislature right now, trying to identify at a time when everybody's trying to ask for additional funding, but really making the case that the money we spend on tourism promotion, the ROI is in many cases over 10 to 1 in what it generates for state and local tax revenue back to the local communities. So if we identify alternate funding sources right now for the short term, while hotel tax revenue starts to increase again, it will pay off for cities like Peoria and for the state of Illinois, but we just need that money because we can't tell Enjoy Peoria and JD's team to go out there and go aggressively market the region when they just don't have the funding to do so. So that's something that we're working really hard on at IHLA with state legislators and leaders to say we need this funding to be stabilized.
Absolutely. That's a great point, and that's something you've been leading the charge with in just a matter of being a 501c6 and making sure that we can be protected and have some relief so we can return the investment tenfold, right? That's what we're doing. We drive people to these hotels. Our hotels do well. We do well. And the communities do well. We highlight that. So what's the investment? What relief can we help, spur as part of the recovery? To that, Michael, I know you have a webinar coming up on Thursday. You want to share that real quick as to your efforts legislatively?
Yeah, we have a whole series. We have several pages of proposals in terms of regulatory relief as well as legislative support from the state of Illinois on a variety of topics that obviously impact hotels, but in many cases impact the broader business community. So we're hosting a virtual town hall on Thursday with Representatives Ann Williams from Chicago and Tim Butler from Springfield. They are the leaders. They were about to, right before the world turned upside down, they were about to formally establish a tourism caucus in the Illinois legislature. Obviously, we haven't had the chance to actually introduce the resolution to do that, but they are going to be the leaders of that caucus once it's formed. So we thought it would be a good opportunity to connect local tourism leaders from across the state with two respected leaders in the legislature, just to walk them through what we see in terms of recovery and assistance we can get from the state government, and really just open it up for a question and answer, similar to what we're doing right here. Let our members hear directly from the people that are going to be forced to help us navigate the state out of this crisis. So we're excited for that opportunity, just to bring legislators directly to hoteliers and local tourism officials.
Thank you for that. And we're coming up on time here. I have one more question for Michael, and then I'm going to pass over to Patrick for my last question here, and we can all, Mike can jump in as well. But I would be remiss, and I'd probably be reprimanded from some people across me if I don't ask about hotel occupancy and forecasting from your perspective at IHLA. What do you see as we continue day by day? I understand it's changing and the news fluctuates the predictions, but maybe just for a May 4th update as to what you see in occupancy in the future. I know our hoteliers and our event planners would be appreciative.
First of all, May the 4th be with you, now that you point out the date. But I think if anyone claims to be the expert that knows how we're going to recover, they're full of it. I don't think we've never been in a situation like we are right now. Again, we can use 9/11, we can use 2008 as some sort of guidance, but nothing compares to what we faced in recent weeks. So I think you're seeing mixed reviews on what I think it's fair to assume we won't necessarily have a V curve. We won't jump to the occupancy that we had last year. Probably by the end of this year. It's going to be a slower recovery. But I think some of the reports you're seeing from organizations like Connect and others is that bookings are ticking upwards for the second half of the year, particularly for Q4 and going over into 2021. So people are continuing to book and are trying to reschedule some events that may have been postponed earlier in the year. So that's promising. But also I think what's even more promising is that we're going to recover from this. And I think that if you look at a region like Peoria, going back to a point that we've made a couple times on this call, is that there is common consensus that the first segment of our business that's going to recover is the drive market. So I think if you look at other regions like the city of Chicago or some other regions throughout the country that are reliant on huge international travelers, huge percentage of international travelers, or major conventions, I think that might see a bigger lag than areas that have the rich history that Peoria does and have the ability to drag in not only locals, but people that are willing to drive 30, 60, 90 minutes, because I think it's going to take longer for travelers to convince themselves that it's safe to get on an airplane for 4 or 6 or even more hours. But if it's a 30-minute drive that they could go with their family in the same car, the same family that they've been isolating with for the last several weeks, that's what's going to see a rebound quicker. So we're encouraged by the signs that bookings are starting to tick upwards for the second half of the year. And I think the good thing about our business is that we're shovel ready. We can add the jobs that were shed over the last several weeks can be added overnight. We could bring those employees back as soon as demand comes back. So I think all of the hoteliers across the entire state are excited for that day to come, whenever it may be.
Thank you for that. And you ended on some good news here. And that's really my question here that we'll end on as we're approaching that hour and closing remarks. Patrick, I'll kick it off to you. I wanted to make sure to ask, keeping an opportunistic eye on the future, I tend to look for anything positive, silver linings, a glass half full, whatever you want to say. That being said, what good news keeps you looking forward to the times ahead? Any nuggets that come about to say, yes, that's for certain, things will be okay. So what do you see? What keeps you going?
I would say 3 statistics are really encouraging for me, and I look forward to opportunities to sharing these. First is 34% of planners are sending out RFPs right now. I think that's that's a higher number than what I had originally anticipated. 20% are signing contracts right now. So 1 out of every 5 planners is still signing contracts right now. Mm-hmm. And over half of those, about 52%, have shared that by August, they're going to be conducting meetings and events. They're planning on actually holding events by August. So that's, to me, it's not, the vast majority are looking at 2020 still holding their meetings and events. They've been postponed. I think the late third and fourth quarter is going to be very busy. That's when everybody's postponing their events still. But just the fact that 35% of RFPs are looking right now for hotels and destinations for their meetings and events, there's still business out there, and that number is going to continue to grow. And I think that's very encouraging. It should be for everybody.
I like those statistics. That's good news. That keeps a positive eye. We have a couple minutes before closing. Michael, do you want to add to that? What keeps you moving forward? What keeps you optimistic about the future?
I think I think those statistics, that's something that IHLA doesn't do ourselves. We rely on groups like Connect to provide that, and that in itself is promising and encouraging. But I think on a personal level myself, of just talking to hotel general managers or talking to even hotel employees, I can't believe how many hotel employees that I've spoken with in the last several weeks that have gotten laid off. You would think they're bitter. You would think that they would hold it against their employer, but I think everybody realized nobody wanted to make this decision. And I think the excitement and the giddiness of a lot of our employees to get back to work and the encouragement of them helps kind of channel my own encouragement and my own positive energy, because I'm like, wow, we're not in this by ourselves. Everybody's facing the same thing. And B, I think it just shows the strength and resiliency of our industry across the board, that people love being part of the travel and tourism industry. People have pride in it. People love being the face of a region like Peoria. And I don't think that's going to change. And I don't think any virus or any sort of event can change that. So it's just been promising having those conversations. And I think when we do come out of this, obviously our industry is going to look very different than when we entered it, whether it's technology or whatever, things that we've discussed already. But I think the pride and the strength will be even greater than when we went into this. And I think that's something to be excited for.
Yeah, I'll conclude with that note, just in the sense that I made a reference in an op-ed. I referenced, the adversity we've seen in the past, but, we've always written a new chapter. And I truly feel we're in in our history, we get to, take incredible pride, and together we get to we get to write this chapter. It hasn't been written yet. So what do we learn from our past, and how do we, in the moment, write this chapter for Peoria and the Peoria area moving forward? And I think, we're going to be able to look back, or at least generations from now, look back as to how our community, took it by the reins and carried us through this COVID-19 situation here at a local level. We look to our past, and just since 340 years ago, it's Fort Creek Core and whiskey and Caterpillar and all these different things, and we have an opportunity here more than anything to write that chapter. And so I will just want to say thank you to everybody that's joined us today and taking part of this conversation. Thank you for your questions. I truly want to thank Patrick and Michael for joining us. They have immensely busy schedules, and just having them on this call is quite the privilege. So I want to thank them. I will leave the floor. We have 5 more minutes here, but maybe in a matter of minutes, you guys want any closing remarks before we wrap up and say goodbye? Michael, you go first.
Yeah, I would just say thank you for everyone on the call, especially those from within the industry. I think, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to lean on you all as more than we ever have before. I think if we're pigeonholed or siloed in industry by industry, where hotels are out doing their own thing and restaurants and attractions are out doing their own thing, I don't think anyone's going to be successful in that effort. So I just appreciate everybody's support, and it's been definitely a high learning curve for everybody, but I think we're going to learn from each other and rely on experts like Patrick and his team to help guide us through this. And I think it'll be a fun day where we can celebrate with a glass of whiskey over the fact that we're past this. And I think finally that time is coming. As I mentioned earlier, there is a dim light at the end of the tunnel that I think everybody's really thrilled to finally see.
Yeah. Well, when that time has come, the whiskey's on us. So I appreciate your time today and your feedback, your expertise. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Oh, and I agree with everything Michael just said. And I thanks everybody for joining the call today. We're we are all in this together. We hear that a lot. Everyone's success really contributes to the overall success of the industry. So we're seeing signs. We're going to continue to see positive signs. We're keeping a close eye on how things are moving. So if there's ever anything we can for you, or if there are any statistics or anything that we can share with you to help you in your reporting, or help give you some ideas in terms of just what we're seeing across the board from a national perspective and a state perspective, please let us know. We're happy to help, and we'll get through all this together, guys.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all you guys do for this industry and the advocacy we have moving forward. So once again, I want to thank everybody on this call. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to us at any point. We look forward to writing this chapter ahead. So with that, I'll let you get on with your days, and thank you for joining us for this Tourism on Target Town Hall. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.